So today we're going to talk about the brand new House of PMO Essentials for PMO Managers. So those of you who kind of keep a track of what we're doing might recognise that we've released earlier in the year House of PMO Essentials for Administrators, House of PMO Essentials for Analysts, and this is the latest one, House of PMO Essentials for PMO Managers. And it is exactly as it says on the tin. It's for those people who are just starting out on a manager's role or about to go for a manager's role. It covers off those essential elements that we think that you need in order to kind of step confidently into that role. So just a little bit about me for those of you who don't know me. My name is Eileen Roden. I work with Lindsay both from a PMO learning perspective, but also we also work for the House of PMO. And I always say this, I did a proper job for a long time before kind of coming over the fence. I can't decide whether I was gamekeeper turned poacher or poacher turned gamekeeper, but I now work with a lot of organisations, helping them establish their PMOs and making sure the individuals who work within their PMOs have the right skills and competencies to be effective in their role. And we've been working with APMG now to get this certification off the ground, and we're very nearly there, and hopefully the director ones will be through in the next couple of weeks, so we'll have our full suite of certifications. So for those of you who don't know PMO Learning at all, this is the first time you've met us. Lindsay and I set up PMO Learning about 5 years ago now, specifically aimed at providing training, education, support from coaching to people who work in PMO, because there was lots of project management training companies, and I've worked with a number of those, managed a number of those, but actually we wanted to really focus our time where our specialist skills lie, which is amongst the PMO community. Our experience from a practical perspective, but also in terms of our training capabilities and some of the way we deliver some of the exercises, is perhaps a little bit more interactive than some other training companies. And one of the things that we put a great deal of stress on is that the people who do training for us either have had a substantive PMO role in their career, or actually a lot of our trainers are still actually working, and they're contractors and they take days off to deliver training to the PMO community. So always interesting. Certainly one of our courses, the delegate feedback was, well, it was great because the lady who took the course, Carol, was actually kind of doing the same thing in her day job the previous week. So real up-to-life experience from organisations, not all about textbook theory. So the whole idea of this session is really to give you an understanding of the House of PMO Essentials for PMO Managers, and talk about how it's delivered, both in terms of how we deliver that from a virtual perspective. So for those of you who may not been on a virtual training course or been on a virtual training course, it might be slightly different to how we do it. So we're going to go through how we do that. And then we want to give you an overview of what's involved in the course, and then we'll take you down to one particular element which we'll cover off in a little bit more detail. So conscious of the time, and I will kind of just will talk possibly at some speed, but do stop me if there's something you want to know. Use the hands up facility, the reactions in Zoom, or stick something in chat, because I've got that chat box open as well. So first things first, just a little bit about our virtual classroom. Now, often when we have people who come on our virtual training courses, they assume it's going to be very much like a webinar. So they can almost have it on in the background and really have a very passive approach. And we would suggest, well, actually, that's much more being in a lecture. What we try to do in our virtual classroom, we try to replicate the classroom environment as much as possible. And so we limit our numbers to 12, as similar as we would do in a classroom environment. We all have workbooks to work through. We have group exercises, we have individual exercises, we have our cameras on all day. So people can really and truly interact, not just the trainer and the delegates, but also between the delegates as well. And to make sure that works, and to make sure we get the most learning out of those few hours we share together, we do have a few house rules. So when we're on a training course, we do ask people to put their cameras on all day. because if you run a training course, you'd be able to look at each other, and there is some real advantage from a trainer's perspective, just to make sure that everybody is engaged and that things have landed and I would expect them to. But it's also interesting just to kind of make sure that you're constantly aware of the other people in the room. Now, you'll see in today's webinar, if you've kind of got the windows open, what we just see is a list of names. So, you know, if you're the only person with your camera on, people kind of tend to turn it off. But actually, if everybody's got the camera on, it just reminds you you're within a group of real human beings rather than just some names on a slide. We do ask, even though we're on our laptops or on our PCs, we do ask people to shut down their other windows so you're not getting WhatsApp messages and emails kind of flying up as we go through the course, because what we want you to do is to be truly contributing both to the conversations that we have as we go through the course, but absolutely in the exercises. And one of the things I always say is that my role, I bring the theory from the textbooks, but actually a lot of the practical, what that means in practice, is actually provided by the delegates on the course. So your input is valued by some of the other delegates, because you're going to be on, on the manager's course, you're going to be other people who are going towards the manager's course, and you can share experiences, you can talk about what it's like in different organizations. But also in terms of, this is your opportunity, it's your training course to ask as many questions as you can, so you've got absolute clarity about the theory, but actually you can glean from everybody else's experience of working in different organizations as well. We are consciously kind of tech aware. We have some technical support available to us if people drop off. But typically, what we just kind of have a little bit of fun with sometimes is where 2 or 3 people start speaking at the same time. Now, in a classroom environment, you just keep going until you're the only one left. In a technical environment, sometimes Zoom gets kind of, it tries to listen to one person. So sometimes we have a bit of fun when a few people speak at once, but we manage that as we go through the day and just ask people to be aware of that. And then finally, we just ask people to behave in a considerate manner. And again, no different to how we would have been in the classroom. It just, consideration of other delegates looks slightly different in a technical environment than it does in a classroom environment. So yes, it's about coming back in a timely fashion after breaks, but it's much easier to kind of talk over people. And again, when we go to exercises, about making sure we use the whole group to provide input. So we do kind of, and we do reiterate those rules and as we kind of go into a training session, as I say, for my benefit as the trainer, but predominantly for your benefit as the delegates. I feel like an air hostess, and they stand at the front and say, we're here, we're going to bring you drinks, but actually we're primarily here for your safety. So not necessarily there for your safety, but certainly to protect and maximize your learning. And in terms of the technology they use, the primary tool that we use for delivery is Zoom. And we do use all of the functionality in Zoom. So we will use slides, we might use some videos, we definitely use the chat. And when we do exercises, rather than everybody being in the whole room the whole time, we will use the breakout rooms so we can go off and do into smaller groups and potentially doing some polls as well. But because we want to work collaboratively, we want to do exercises where we're kind of essentially trying to put things up on flip charts and write on flip charts as a group, we also use a couple of other technologies, one being Mentimeter, the other being Miro, and finally we use Trello. Now, I always need to point this out, you will get an email before the course starts to talk about the different technologies, and Trello, we like you to kind of have logged on, at least got an ID, but none of those technologies will cost you any money to attend our training courses. So we've got the kind of the major accounts where all of the exercises are set up. Essentially, you just need to kind of log on and connect to those. So there's no cost to you or your organization to use that technology. If you want a course run in-house in your organization, all of our courses are available in-house. We're happy to use other tools. So if you want it on MS Teams, GoToMeeting, WebEx, we can do that as well as what suits. But Zoom tends to be our favorite because it's just so easy to use. So just a little bit about the certification, because I'm not sure everybody has necessarily heard of the House of PMO. So let me just tell you a little bit about House of PMO. So we opened the House of PMO, we opened the doors to the House of PMO last year. And it was there again because we wanted an association that was there to support people who work specifically in a PMO. So what we know, wherever you start, whether you're a kind of very junior member or you're a PMO director or anything in between, we wanted a professional body that truly represented and supported the development of the individuals who work in a PMO. And as you know, we've already intimated from a training perspective, actually your contributions, regardless of where you sit in the organisation, they will be helping other people. So really kind of facilitating the development of anybody who works in a PMO, but also working really hard to establish PMO as a profession. Now, I think we're back in a winning horse because there's been a proliferation of PMOs over the last few years, and what we're trying to do is just kind of create some kind of standard, so people who want to join the profession, who want to have a career in the progression, there's some kind of structure through that. So if you're interested in membership of the House of PMO, go over to www.houseofpmo.com. There is free membership, which gives you some limited availability, and there are obviously some different memberships available to you. So we started off very much kind of with a competency framework, which I'm going to come on to in a moment. But when we were looking at the different roles, the different levels of jobs in an organisation, we identified these 4 key roles: the administrator, the analyst, the manager, and the director. Now, typically, you might have a job that actually is not represented in those. So I might be a PMO coordinator. Yes, I might be a PMO lead. But what we identified was these kind of 4 levels of jobs that people would go into in the PMO. So we said we've covered off the administrator and the analyst. We're now doing the manager one, and we will have the director one in the next month or so. So basically, this is kind of, if I'm going in to become a PMO manager job, I'm thinking about applying for that job, or actually I've just started and I just kind of want to round my knowledge. We're not saying you're going to be the world's best PMO manager when you come out of the course. It really is to give you an indication of the breadth and the depth the role of the PMO manager can be. Now, typically, people want to go on the most senior course, and we recognise that. But we are very careful, and part of the work we do with APMG means that we've got some defined prerequisites for people who are going on the manager's course. So you will need to have done the PMO analyst course or a practitioner certificate in any real kind of project management, program management, or portfolio management certification. Okay, so it's really just to say that, we're not going to be teaching you about project and program management. We're not going to teach you a lot about kind of portfolio management. You will have to come on the course with a general understanding of what projects, programs, and portfolios are all about, because we're very much focused on what the PMO manager does within that context. We do recognise that not everybody has got the availability to go on those training courses, and we've said, well, actually, you can have the equivalent of 3 years experience of working within a PMO. Now, in order to do your exam, you will need to submit evidence against those prerequisites. So there'll have to be a certificate or a CV that's been demonstrated around your experience in order to get on the manager's course. So just wanted to kind of make you aware of that. We do that for a couple of reasons. What you don't want to do is go on a course where you feel out of your depth, if you're a kind of a junior PMO individual. But at the same time, what a PMO manager or somebody who's working at that level doesn't want to do is to kind of, and from a trainer's perspective, we want to have conversations at that level. So it protects you as an individual, but it also protects the group to make sure we've got people who are, roughly in the same position, because that's where the learning is shared. So in terms of the text, and again, this is where, the House of PMO have done a significant amount of work on behalf of the PMO community. We've got a couple of core texts that the course is based on. So the first one, anybody seen the PMO competency framework? Is that, I get a nod. Thank you for the nod, yes. So the competency framework was written, and it's what the role descriptions are in. And basically what the competency framework says, this is the skills, knowledge, and behaviours you need to have in order to be able to perform at the PMO manager level, which is kind of where the basis of the course is from. We also take some information from the PMO service catalogue, which was written by a good friend of ours, Stuart Dixon. And because we need some core text around project, programme and portfolio management, we use something called the Praxis Framework. And I don't know whether people have seen the Praxis Framework. You can go to www.praxisframework.org. And what you've got there is a full integrated methodology around projects, programmes, portfolios, maturity and competency. So we use that as a basis when we want to talk about project management and project management theory. So Praxis is, even though it's a named text and a named methodology, it sits alongside Axelos, Prince2, MOP. It sits a lot across alongside the APM certifications and the PMI certifications. So, what we do in the competency framework is definitely kind of method, or it's not parochial to one particular flavour of project management. So just it's worth saying that at the manager's course, we don't provide these textbooks. What we do, and we've created a set of materials that has all of the information that you need in order to pass the examination. So all of the text that you need from the competency framework and the service catalogue is in the course book. You've got free access to Praxis, or you can buy the little book if you want to, but actually the website's much better because it's constantly getting added to. So we don't provide you with the textbooks, but it's worth saying that the competency framework and the service catalogue is less than the current price of a Prince2 manual. So if you did want to buy them, they're not extortionately expensive. So the competency framework covers 4 different competency domains. Covers off P3M administration, P3M delivery support, PMO management, and P3M enabling. Now, in the manager's role description that's in there, our primary focus is on PMO management and P3M enabling. So administration and delivery support tends to be primarily in the remit of administrators and analysts. As we move up to the PMO management role, then that's the areas we're looking at in the competency framework. But let's just have a quick look at those roles. And I sometimes think this is quite useful because, again, when people have got a different job title to what's seen on the screen, you're not necessarily kind of quite sure where you sit, perhaps. So let's just kind of go on and talk about the roles. We've got detailed role profiles in the competency framework, and we do cover those off at the course. But let's just kind of look at kind of where the positioning for this is. So firstly, we've got the PMO administrator. Now, this is very much a project and program management role in that, and it tends to be filled by people who are coming into project and program management for the very first time, or for people who've done an administration job for a number of years in an organisation, or even just for a short space of time in an organisation, and they can bring those administration skills. And what the course will do is we'll top up their project and programme knowledge to say, well, actually, how do we apply those in a project and programme management environment? The PMO analyst and that role, there's a couple of interesting bits in terms of kind of what that job looks like. Firstly, they will support the project and program management. So again, if you're a junior project manager, that might be a place that you want to come in and do that PMO analyst course, or you've been a PMO administrator because you're there helping the project and program managers to actually deliver their projects. Additionally to that, typically what you'll be doing is working with the PMO manager to roll out things, new services from your PMO. So whether that be some new templates, a new tool, a new way of doing things, a new process for developing your business case. So you've actually got that two roles, supporting a project and program deliver, but also supporting your PMO rolling out new services. When we come to the PMO manager's role, this is the person who is setting up a PMO within their organization with a level of structure around what services are going to be provided. So they have full accountability for that PMO, what that agreeing what that PMO delivers, setting up those services, taking it through transformation if it's appropriate, and again, if you've got a temporary PMO, to do that close down at the end. So that's where this certification is aimed at. And we do have another one coming through in the next kind of couple of weeks, which is the PMO director. And this is aimed at individuals who are sitting right at the top of the P3O PMO structure and negotiate and agree what PMOs there are in the organisation, how the services are split across those various PMOs. So as I said, we'll do. I'm sure we'll be doing another session on the director when the director comes out. But let's have a quick look in terms of a little bit more detail in terms of the PMO manager. So we've said they will set up, run, transform, and close an office that supports delivery of projects, programs, and portfolios. But actually, we also recognise that sometimes PMO managers actually have project and program managers working for them and have to allocate them off to projects and programs. So we do recognise that that happens with some PMO managers' role. And we've identified 9 key responsibilities that, again, we touch on as we kind of go through the course. So be accountable. If I've got my PMO, then as the PMO manager, I want to make sure that I'm delivering the services that my organisation need from my PMO, and I've got the right team to actually deliver those services. I need to be able to kind of manage those teams, not just so they do what's required today, but as I've got my roadmap from how we want to do things in 6 weeks, 6 months' time, I'm making sure that I'm taking that team and developing that team or recruiting into that team to make sure that the sustainability and the continuing value add of that PMO. We should, within our remit, so if that's at a project, we're a PMO manager for a project office, we should be promoting and nurturing a culture that actually inspires people to do well and to want to do well in their project delivery. And it's really interesting. We often get called the template police, and people draw pictures of us with our truncheons. Well, actually, leading by example and supporting people to do the right things and making the right things the easiest things to do can sometimes go a lot better way than kind of getting our truncheon out and kind of banging on the desk for the latest timesheet that's to be delivered. We may also see as a PMO manager that you actually get involved in recruiting people into the project delivery team, particularly if you're sitting there in the PMO and part of your PMO's role is to do things like competency assessments of the project managers. Okay, so you'll naturally do that with your team of the PMO, but actually it may be our role to kind of work out how competent we are at delivering projects across the project or the program. And so actually we will get, as we want to kind of bring people on board, we'll be involved in building that team up, not just our own team. And it had to come somewhere. So yes, we have all of the standards and methods that we look after, and potentially the tools. And again, it's always interesting in terms of where tools sit. Do I have that in my own little project office, or actually is that looked over at portfolio level and I'm just a user on that system? But we would have somebody in the portfolio office who has oversight of all of the users and how the tools are being used and whether we actually need a tool at all, and if we want to upgrade our tool or get additional tools in. Number 7, this kind of one in the middle here, however many PMOs we asked, we couldn't find a PMO that didn't do any reporting. And so reporting will always be a part of the PMO manager's role to agree with the key stakeholders what kind of information that they're after. And I think it's also important to recognise that we're not just reporting on how the projects and programmes are doing, we're also and should be held accountable about how our PMO is performing. So we will touch on what are the metrics and measures, not just around projects and programmes, but actually the PMO itself. And then the last 2 areas there are where we look at governance and making sure we've got the right governance and decision-making bodies in place. And we do a level of assurance and coordinate the assurance to make sure that there are not some systemic issues in the organisation, or we've got some kind of fundamental flaws in some of the services that we offer, or the processes and procedures and the templates that we have in place. So I think it's just useful to kind of get your head around and kind of think it's good to validate that actually that's kind of where you are. And if you're then kind of coming on to do the course, as I said, what we're trying to do is to give you a really, based on that role description, based on the competencies in the competence assessment, we're going to give you an understanding of what that role involves on a day-to-day basis, the context within which you work, how you relate to the other roles that sit in around the PMO, and go through the key competencies that are really going to make the difference between you being an okay PMO manager and being a truly competent and good PMO manager. And because it's an accreditation, we do actually have an exam. So at the end of the 3 days, and it's a 3-day course, you will be provided with an opportunity to book and take the exam. So for those of you who remember doing classroom courses, which seems like a lifetime ago now, yes, before COVID, you would actually kind of do the exam in the classroom. All of the exams are now done online. So we'll do the 3-day session for the manager course. You will then have a voucher that you can book in to do the exam at a time that suits you. And Charles will tell you it's much easier to do that, is it not, Charles, if in the first couple of weeks after the course, then thinking about you're going to do it, never get round to doing it, and doing it quite a few weeks later. So that is a very knowing smile by Charles, because he's been there. So the exam itself is a 75-minute exam. You've got 60 questions to do in that 75 minutes, and the pass mark is 50%. So you will need to get at least 30 questions right in order to pass the exam. So how does the 3 days break up? So day 1 is really just getting ourselves orientated in terms of, kind of the roles and some key concepts. If you've not been on one of the House of PMO courses before, we cover some basic concepts of like service-based organisations. So very much we talk about service-based organisations. If you've not been there, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the roles. And interestingly, we've said delivery support is often in the analyst and the administrator remit. But even as a PMO manager, you will still have to do some support for the senior managers. So you may not necessarily kind of go into doing a project plan for a project manager, but you very well may be coaching a sponsor. You, again, from a portfolio level, you may be supporting the senior team, making decisions on the prioritization of what's in the portfolio, what's going to be in the portfolio. So we cover off that kind of delivery support competence. And then we do our first introduction into PMO management, and we talk about the project, the PMO life cycle. And we also, as we go into day 2, we also kind of support that by looking and recognizing that there are different environments that the PMO can be in order, and therefore the process for getting that up and running can actually be kind of more difficult in some situations than others. And we'll talk about some kind of tactics and approaches for running, building and running our PMOs. And then we start on the enabling competencies. Now, these enabling competencies, or the competencies that need to be they support the activities that need to be put in place in order for projects and programs to be successful. So on day 2, we do capacity management and capability development. And then on the 3rd day, we go on to governance, assurance, delivery methods and tools, because typically as a PMO manager, these are the types of things that you will be focusing on in order for your PMO to be successful and the projects or programs that you're working on to be successful. And then we do a little bit to close off with the exam. So I just thought for a little bit of a taster, and this is really to start giving you an understanding of the level of detail that we go into on the course and the kind of conversations and the discussions that we would have in this situation. And so I've picked up the start of day 2, where we start talking about the PMO management competence, and specifically, yes, what the definition and description of that PMO management competence is. Now, the interesting thing, when we talk about PMO management, people often think about that as PMO line management. So how do I manage my team? And that's really under your kind of line management competences. What we talked about here in terms of PMO management is actually the office as a function or a department in your organization that delivers services to your customers. So whether that be a division, so I when I worked at Cadbury's, my division was the EMEA, I can never remember, Europe, Middle East and Africa. Yes, so used to calling it EMEA. Somebody looked after Americas and somebody looked after Asia Pac. It could be I just looked after a project. It could be I look after a big strategic program for the organization. And the idea is the PMO manager is that person who says, well, actually, how can I best help? What is it they want from me and my PMO in order to support them through delivery? So that's really kind of where we're focused. And we look at the PMO life cycle in terms of what are the key activities to set the PMO up? What do we do on an ongoing basis to kind of crank the handle in terms of, yes, the PMO is kind of running nicely, everybody's in the nice place, the services are all loved, and we're not getting any kind of problems with all of that, through to kind of, well, actually, we're supporting a large program. The program is about to go into the second tranche, and this time, rather than doing lots of kind of infrastructure elements to the program, we're now doing a lot of digital programs in the digital projects in the program, and therefore the shape of the PMO needs to move in order to kind of take them through the next tranche, which is typically where we'd be talking about kind of transforming the PMO from what it was to where it needs to be for the next tranche of the program. And then finally, as I said, kind of close the PMO down at the end of that project or program. And undoubtedly we'll have conversations about whether some PMOs I can't even say it, whether some PMOs should shut down, yes, or whether they end up being shut down for all of the wrong reasons. So we'll have some of that kind of conversation as well. And because as a PMO manager, you're there to make sure that what we're doing is right for the organization, a key part of our role when we start setting up our PMOs is to make sure that we've got the right metrics in place that drive the right behavior and the right results for the organization. So whether we use KPIs, key performance indicators, where we use OKRs, which are objectives and key results, or whether we've got some service level agreements, some SLAs in place in terms of what we offer to our customers, then we do need to make sure they're properly integrated, not only to us within the PMO, not only to the projects and programs we deliver, but also into the organization. So people say, well, actually, that PMO is there. Yes, it's helping the program, but I'm not sure whether it's bringing much value. We should be able to demonstrate through our metrics how the world is a better place, the benefits of why the world is a better place by having the PMO in there supporting the delivery. And again, recognizing that those metrics and measures have to align to what our PMO does, But if we sit within an integrated PMO model, so there's 4 or 5 different PMOs around the organisation that the PMO director oversees, well, we need to perhaps kind of make sure we're measuring the right things in our PMO, so the PMO director can have that rolled up and they get a picture of the overall performance of the PMOs. And you'll see we've put in there a whole kind of mixture of KRAs, how well we're doing services, so kind of some kind of customer feedback would go into those metrics and measures. And again, it should be part of a holistic whole. We may even want to do some benchmarking in terms of where do we sit compared to the other PMOs across the organisation, or if you're very lucky, how do we sit in relation to PMOs across different organisations? And I think there's still quite a bit of work to do about PMO maturity and establishing that, and some of the metrics and measures can work with us in order to do that. I think the other thing we need to recognise is that where we've got an integrated PMO model in the organisation, there will be other PMOs doing other things. So if Lindsay is running the IT PMO there bottom right, she has a service catalogue listing all of the service offerings to her customers. She's got a PMO operations handbook which explain to the people who work in the PMO how to deliver those services, what technology is required, what templates are involved. And I'm sitting over here in the transformation PMO thinking, well, actually, we've got quite a few IT projects sitting within our programme. There's a service that Lindsay currently offers in her IT PMO that I think would be useful to our programme. So rather than me reinventing the wheel, I can go over to Lindsay and steal with zeal her PMO service catalogue and bits of her operations handbook that we can use. And we may actually decide, well, actually, Lindsay's PMO can deliver, because Lindsay's PMO is for all IT projects, actually they can deliver in some services to my project across the organisation. So it doesn't necessarily, need to say that absolutely need to be separate and distinct, but recognising what other PMOs are out there and what they do to make sure that we're doing things in the most efficient and effective way is part of our role. And again, how we relate to other PMO managers, our response to the PMO directors, and perhaps how we share skills and develop skills with the PMO administrators and analysts. And then what we also recognise is that we're not static. Yes, there are things that we're planning to do to improve our PMO, to increase the services that we provide, to make them more efficient, perhaps to make them more widely available. And so we would have a roadmap of where we're going with our PMO, and in terms of how they align with the objectives, the mission, vision, and strategy of the PMO that's set for our PMO as the PMO manager. But again, recognizing the link to the vision and mission of the other PMOs and the overall mission and vision of the whole integrated PMO model. And then we also look at how we use our resources. Now, I meet very many PMO managers who have got, you try and get a meeting in their diary, and it's not because I'm trying to sell them something, but you look at their diaries and it's chock-a-blocker with kind of meetings and work that needs to be undertaken. And one of the things we will talk about is how do we plan our resources to give ourselves and our team sufficient headroom, to do the performance monitoring of the individuals and the PMOs themselves, but also to continue to develop and deliver that roadmap of an improved PMO out to the organisation. So we have some kind of conversation about how we perhaps might split our resources across there. Now, even though I've spoken quite a bit on this particular session, when we do the course, as I mentioned right at the very beginning, we do make it highly interactive. And what we want is in these exercises for you to be able to think about your particular organisation. We also have a case study we can play with, so we've got some shared understanding of the context we're working in. But this is a kind of a typical kind of exercise. Think about some metrics about how you would manage the performance of the PMO, but not only that, how would you make sure they were aligned to corporate metrics? Yes. So how do we not just contribute to the success of the project or program, but how does what we do actually kind of feed into the overall success of the organization? So somebody said, we've got a question there about what's the difference between the head of PMO and the PMO director. Nothing, I think, other than their job title. Yes, and again, just to kind of validate that, go and have a look at the role profile that sits in the competency framework, and I think it's probably available to look at independently on the House of PMO website, as to kind of just to have a look at your description if it's head of PMO, as to whether that's the same as the PMO director. And as I say, what we describe it as is that individual who has overall accountability for ensuring that we've got the right coverage of PMO skills across the organization. So typically you might be the manager of the enterprise PMO, but there's lots of other PMOs that have their own managers who you've delegated responsibility down to deliver the services in that PMO. And it's interesting, when we first brought the competency framework, we had lots of people saying, oh, the kind of PMO directors, yes, it's an aspirational role. And we said, there's jobs out there. People are kind of are advertising those roles, and we actually have a number of people who we know are currently undertaking those roles at very senior levels in the organisation. So they are out there. If you're desperate for one, then go look. But the difference between the manager and the director is that the PMO manager is typically looking after one, possibly two PMOs. PMO director has oversight of all of the PMOs in an organisation. So that is an absolute whistle-stop tour of the certification, the prerequisites, how it sits with the other roles. I've given you an indication of what the course looks like. I haven't given you a practice exam question, but we've kind of talked about the exam. Has anybody got any questions at all on the course, the content, the prerequisites, the trainers, anything at all that I can clarify for you today? You're all sated, or you're all very hungry, or you've all wilted away in the heat, and well, I hope it's a positive one. Hope we've answered all of your questions. Charles is just going to put his details in the chat again, just in case you didn't catch them first time. From our perspective, I'm actually doing the very first managers course Monday to Wednesday next week. So unless you can turn a purchase order around in about kind of half an hour, the next Essentials for PMO Managers is being delivered on the 3rd to the 5th of October. And then if you're a newly appointed PMO director, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. If you've already got a certification like P3O, you may not necessarily find the PMO manager of a huge amount of use to you. It covers off some of that, and some of the other areas we'll be touching on again in the director's level. So I'm sure, Charles, do you know when we've got the taster session for the director's course? It's not scheduled yet, is it?
Let me double check.
I know we're hoping, and we know the certification is finished writing, because I've done that. We're hoping to have a director's course in October, and it's probably worth having a conversation.
Not currently.
Okay.
But update soon.
In terms of our other courses, we've got a benefits management course running this weekend. And just to be clear, going back to the whole kind of purpose of PMO learning, that benefits management course, it will teach you a bit about benefits management, but it's very much taken from the PMO perspective. So how can I work with the organisation and provide services that implement, embed and support benefits management, as opposed to this is what benefits management is. So it's very much from the PMO perspective. And then our next couple of courses are the P3O Foundation and the P3O Practitioner. And I've still got that date, so the 11th of the 15th of July, and it's actually the September date that's coming up in there. We'll correct that and make sure when the recording goes out, the correct date is on there. And as I've said, you know, if the dates don't fit or you've got a number of people in your organisation who are all looking for the same training, it tends to become cost effective when you've got about 6 delegates who are interested in running that same course together. And what we found as well is part of the conversation is, well, actually, I've never thought about the other PMOs in the organisation. You know, we're completely standalone. So this is a really good opportunity. If you've got a number of PMO managers, you could run the course internally and really start opening up some of those conversations to start thinking about how can we be more effective and efficient in recognising some other PMOs across the organisation. Once you've been on the course, or kind of whether you kind of just want to take the offer up straight away, we have 2 levels of additional support packages that we can do for you. Firstly, in terms of embedding support, so we've got access to a number of consultants who will actually say, well, now you've been through the thought process, this is how we can help you make that happen in your organisation. Or if you're a PMO manager and you don't necessarily want a consultant on site to come and help you, we do offer some one-to-one coaching to help you do your job and just to provide, you know, kind of a soundboard and a challenge to how you're supporting your organisation and how you're undertaking your particular role in your company. So, as always, we do try and get, this is the generic number that kind of that takes you through to our switchboard. If you've got any questions at all, you can do inquiries at pmolearning.co.uk. And I think Lindsay put some links in earlier. There are more details on the chat, more details on the website at www.pmolearning.co.uk. So, a whistle-stop tour in the heat. Thank you very much for kind of sitting through that. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see you on the course. We hope you find it really beneficial. Certainly the courses we've run so far in this suite of products from the House of PMO have been, I was going to say they've gone down as a huge success, but that's not necessarily just because I think we do a good job in terms of delivering it, but as much because people find them really useful to kind of what's covered off in the syllabus and helping them on a very practical basis on to do their day-to-day job in the organisation. Okay, so I shall leave you now. I hope you have a great afternoon and a fantastic weekend, and hopefully we'll see you at one of our events or one of our training courses soon.